Hello, football fans. Welcome back to the Scuffed Football Podcast, Week 7. I did write it down this week. This is Noah. I'm Ted. We're here to cover the previous week, talk stories, scores, fantasy, gambling, the whole damn week. If any of y'all follow me on Twitter, you know this is going to be a spicy episode. I was tweeting about the goddamn New York Jets this week. All right. So I guess to start, big things are just to get straight into games, and I might as well lead off with that Jets tweet. First off, the first thing I got to say about that Jets and Packers game is the uniform selection was so fucking terrible. It was the hardest football game I have ever had to watch. It was terrible. Into the game itself, I got so angry watching this game that I genuinely looked up stats to be super prepared for this podcast. I spent hours on Pro Football Focus to be mad about this game. First off, if you were watching this game, the first half, just to watch just the Packers on offense in the first half, you'd go, how on earth could they possibly lose this game? But if you kept watching, you'd see sacks, so many sacks, a blocked kick, despite Rodgers throwing dimes all day long. Play selection was terrible. They couldn't keep the ball. Everything was awful. The other part of it is that these two teams were terrible at converting on third downs. So I'm gonna read you some numbers here. This week, the Jets were the worst team at converting on third down, less than 10%, 9.09% converting on third down. Green Bay only converted on 25%. If you go through the scoring drives, right, the only time a team converted on a third down that led to a scoring play was the Packers' field goal at halftime. Like, absolutely convert your third downs, move the ball down the field. Turnovers led to, like, the two of the Jets' touchdowns were defensive, and they one was a blocked punt, and one was they had to move the ball 30 yards. Like, this was such an embarrassment of offense, despite Rodgers even looking good this week. This was an abomination of a football game, and the Jets beat the Packers. What the hell?
It's pretty surprising, that you're so angry about this game. I actually didn't think that was going to be your reaction. I thought you'd be very kind of eat shit, Noah. The Jets are good, which could be fair to say. But I was watching the highlights, and not even anything in the first quarter. It was like. It was just a dud of a game in the first half. Again, I think we both picked the Packers to win this. This was not the Packers team I was expecting to see, especially against, the lowly Jets. I don't know if they're lowly anymore, though. Again, so on like one hand, there's, I don't know if they're, lowly, or maybe it was just like an off week. But again, now we've seen, as much as it pains me to say, I've counted the Jets out many times now. So I don't know if they're just gotten that much better, or, strength of play. Maybe the teams they're playing right now aren't their top teams that they used to be. So I don't know what to take of it from a message standpoint for both the Jets and the Packers. I don't know if it was an off week, or if the Jets are just 17 points better than the Packers.
I'm not coming into this going eat shit, Noah, that New York is good. I will say that New York is a very, very sneaky 4-2, right? But like, to look at some of their wins that got them to that point, I mean, they beat the Jets the Jets beat the Dolphins, without a quarterback. Like, yeah, they throttled them, but I wouldn't necessarily say that they looked great. They beat the Browns, which I think is a solid win, but doesn't prove to me that they're any sort of deep contender. I mean, to go through the schedule that they've played so far, I'd argue that Green Bay or Cleveland is their best win, and neither one of those is flattering me, right? Like, I don't know that this turns into a playoff run. I don't know that when their schedule gets harder and they start playing teams like a healthy Dolphins team, or both games against the Bills, I don't know that that's going to turn into a whole lot. But I mean, 4-2 for this point in the season for the Jets is incredible to me. My bigger takeaway from this game was the Packers, right? I mean, we were kind of down on them last week, but their offensive line was absolute Swiss cheese. Their special teams was garbage. Their defense got tired at the beginning of the third quarter and just started letting the Jets get open passes. I mean, this looks so bad for Green Bay. I don't want to take anything away from the Jets because they did play well enough to win, but the Packers were just bad.
Again, yeah, it's definitely, again, like you said, we're a little bit down on them. And again, like they haven't proven to me that they're the same team that we saw last season. And these wins or these losses that, they should be what we think they should be winning. I think it's just a little bit more about them than, the sneaky 4-2 that the Jets have.
Yeah, look, 4-2 for the Jets, man. Give it up to him. Like all credit in the world. Robert Saleh is a madman, but still, my biggest point from this was just that the Packers need to find themselves and absolutely get it together because this was just an abomination. Moving on to the next game, though. I know you can't see me at the moment, Noah, and sorry, Spotify audience who doesn't get to see the beauty that it is. I'm decked out in my Eagles gear because. Look, I'm not as high on the Eagles as you thought I was, but I'm still a homer at the end of the day. I love the Eagles, but I've read from so many different people a million different times that the Eagles could go 2-14 every single season, 2-15 now, as long as those 2 wins with the Dallas Cowboys. So to be 6-0, the only team in the league to still be undefeated, and then to have beaten the Cowboys, man, I feel really good this week. I don't know that I could feel higher on the Eagles after 6 weeks than I do right now.
Again, agreed. They are our last undefeated team. I think that beating Dallas, though, was kind of more of I think that, we talked about the Jets or the Packers' best wins or the Jets' best wins. But again, I think that kind of would fit that same category. I think that's a pretty impressive win. So
I admittedly, like watching the game this week, I thought that the Eagles did not look as good this week as they have in previous weeks. I don't know whether to give credit to Dallas for that or just that the Eagles were kind of down this week. Play calling felt a little flat, and it really felt like they were going to let that lead go. But I mean, I guess to look at their season so far as a whole, the Vikings are obviously overperforming from what we expected at the beginning of the season. And they beat the Vikings pretty handedly. The Cowboys are no slouch, and the Eagles got a hold of them too. I mean, some of their wins are obviously against lower teams. I mean, we've talked up the Lions, but they're still towards the bottom of the league. We've definitely discounted Washington even being able to play football, and the Eagles beat the Commanders. So, I mean, I want to obviously put what I'm seeing from the Eagles still being undefeated with a limitation, that. We haven't guaranteed that they are one of the best teams in the league, but I don't think it's short to say that they're at least up there and in the conversation.
Right. I will say, I think this is the first time we've also seen Cooper Rush this season look like not an all-star or a starting quarterback. Obviously those 2 picks, those are the first 2 we've seen in 4 games from him. So, again, I don't think he played his best, so I think it might have been a little different. But again, whenever, the past few weeks that they've gotten the wins for Dallas, they haven't needed Cooper Rush to be another Dak. They just relied on other areas in their game. So it's interesting that this was the first time that they didn't get that production.
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting to see, too. I mean, I think we talked about it either last week or the week before, where we talked about Dak Prescott when he replaced Tony Romo and watching how the offense changes for the Cowboys, right? I mean, bringing back quarterbacks or choosing to keep bench players who are succeeding is obviously something that's probably still a sore subject for Dallas fans. I know that Dak is the better quarterback, right? But I'll be interested to see. I mean, this will be, 5 weeks that he hasn't been able to hold or throw a football? Sure, you can get first team reps in practice all week, but we don't know what kind of quarterback we're going to see out of Dak Prescott. And if Cooper Rush had a down week this week compared to his previous 4, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what taking away first team snaps does, even if he is the starter next week. I just think it's a really interesting storyline to see how it affects the Cowboys season. But I did mention that, while I can call the Eagles towards the top of the league, my consensus is the Bills are the best team in football right now. And I was thrilled to watch the Bills and Chiefs play again. This was not the explosive blowout that I was ready for necessarily. But I think it's time to get excited that this is a real possibility to see a second time this season in the playoffs for an AFC championship game.
Yeah, agreed. Obviously, where I stand with my Bills, but No, it was definitely. I was looking forward to it. Obviously, the last time we saw him, there was that game. That was one of the best divisionals we'll see. But no, again, I guess I expected this. I expected, them to fight and fight, and I expected it to be a little bit like higher scoring. I think actually, like I believe they would probably be close to 40s. So I was a little uh, just watching that. But again, both defenses, they kind of showed up and showed out, and both offenses showed up and showed out. So it was definitely a fun game. I'm ready to see that.
For the Bills, I had a couple of takeaways. Their run game was super strong, especially early in the game when they were using it more often, which I think is really promising. But then when the game got tighter, they felt like they needed to put points on the board late in the game. Like, Josh Allen just took the game over. It was Josh Allen versus the world. That I watched him hurdle yet another defender. He put the ball on the ground. He put the ball in the air. Like Josh Allen, I'm pretty sure he could have had a team of 10 tackling dummies and still willed them to win that game. Obviously, having Dawson Knox and Stephon Diggs helps a lot. But I mean, genuinely, like that at the end of that game, that became Josh Allen versus the Chiefs. As far as the Chiefs go, I mean, you did mention their defense a bit, and I thought it was like hopeful for the Chiefs season. We were like, they had some weaker weeks early on in the season, but to now see that like their play calling was really good, really creative. I still give Andy Reid all the credit in the world for being one of the best offensive minds in football, but like they relied on the pass all day long from the start of the game until the end of the game, and it continued to work. But their defense was the part that surprised me, because holding the Bills, especially with Josh Allen, that kind of will to win, to hold the Bills to a close game, I thought was really impressive and has a pretty lasting impact for the Chiefs for the rest of the season.
Agreed. And again, like when we talk about top teams with, top defenses wise, like, the teams that come up, Buffalo, the Rams, even like Philly, we can throw them in. But we never really talk about Kansas City because they're not known. They're like, oh, that's just Patrick Mahomes' team. Like it's, we talk about all offense, but we never really see the defense. So I agree. I was very impressive to hold just the explosive Buffalo Bills to 24.
Yeah, I mean, like the thing is that, their defenses never needed to be good. It just needed to be good enough that 45 points on offense, is enough to win the game, right? Like, but they actually played a really solid defensive game. I saw a bunch of really good short field holds. They kept the Bills in really bad territory for a lot of that game. I would argue that, like, to watch it through in an expedited form, you'd say the Chiefs probably played a better football game, but I really think that speaks to the Bills' resilience, and we're gonna see them deep this season. Not just they're good and can, like we're going to see them run deep this year. The last game I have to talk about, I almost regret putting this one on the list, is the last night's game, the Broncos and the Chargers. Man, what the hell? The Chargers needed overtime to beat that Broncos team? They needed overtime?
Listen, this is like the third overtime game that Denver has gone through, I think, or two or whatever. I mean, it was interesting. I didn't watch a lot, but it was interesting to see that Russell Wilson played like the Russell Wilson I guess we expected in the first quarter. He went 10 for 10, threw a touchdown, over 100 yards. Like, that's the quarterback that we've been expecting and, like, been waiting for the Broncos to show up. So it's kind of interesting to see that. But then again, for the rest of the game, he just disappeared. So
well, it's interesting. It's interesting you mentioned that, because like their first quarter play calling seemed super scripted. Like there wasn't a whole lot of deep shots. There wasn't a whole lot of variability. It was short, quick hits. It was a lot of like really structured play calling, like almost as if they had the first 20 plays like lined out, didn't matter field position or yardage or anything like that. And he did look good in those positions. But as you got later into those games where he needed to start playmaking rather than just following the script, I saw him miss a lot of wide open receivers looking to the complete opposite side of the field. I'm not naive. I know that a lot of that is like you have scheduled reads that you're supposed to look certain directions, first, second, third, fourth. Like you're supposed to follow a scan of receivers for the most efficient play, right? But at some point when you're a guy who's as good and well respected and genuinely as creative, like as a creative playmaker that Russell Wilson is, like it's very strange to have seen at least 3 that I can recall wide open receivers not even get looked at. I don't know if that's play calling and just bad reads. I don't know if that's Russ, I don't know if like I don't know what caused that, but it was very strange to see so many guys open and just not get hit, especially when they had to lose the game in overtime. Like, as much as I'm gonna discredit the Chargers needing overtime to beat that Broncos team, like the Broncos stayed in it well enough that they could have won with some open passes.
Right, agreed. So yeah, I mean, we look at, I guess, was looking for comparison. Like the facts that even though the Chiefs lost to the Bills, like I still would put them a little bit higher up because they put up a fight with the Bills. But then, using that conversation, I would actually go a little bit down on the Chargers because they needed overtime to beat this team. And again, even though that first quarter was like a standout, like the rest of the game wasn't really, what we expected from the past few weeks. So.
Right. I've got a note on that later that I want to get to, just a couple of records talks, but I think my biggest thing from this game is like to move away from games and into some other like bigger picture topics. I think we've reached the point in the season where I'm just kind of down on watching certain games. Like the beginning of football season is great because you never have any idea, no expectations. You can get a team like the Jets to go 4-2 and their games are worth watching, right? But like I'm at the point now where we're 6 weeks into the season, about to go into week 7, where I can just write some teams off and not need to watch their games, right? The ones that I wrote down specifically were the AFC South and the NFC South. I don't need to watch your football games, right? I don't care what the Titans or the Jags or the Texans or the Colts are doing. Like I know they're not going anywhere, right? Same with the NFC South. I don't want to discredit Brady because I know he's a winner when it matters, but their games just kind of suck this season. Like it's not worth watching because it's hard for me to believe that they're going to make a deep run. But I mean, the Broncos are there for me. I know they have like them being in primetime slots probably makes me more angry about it than I should be. You know what I mean? Like when there's only one game on and I have to watch Russell Wilson do nothing, like it definitely makes me more agitated than when there's 6 other games on. But like I'm just kind of done with the Broncos. Like I have no interest in watching them whatsoever.
Yeah, agreed. Again, we haven't seen a lot from them, and this was again the best part of this game was probably that first quarter for the Broncos. So like, again, that's just one quarter out of, the past 6 weeks that I've actually wanted to see the Broncos. So yeah, agreed. I'd put them in those 2 lists there because AFC South, I'm with that. I don't know what's happening there. The Jags are winning that right now. Like that's crazy to me.
Not only the Jags winning, the Jags are winning that at 3-3. Like it's just such a disappointing division. But some other ones too. I wanted to get your opinions. There's a couple other divisions that I'm kind of like on the fence about. Right, like I'm kind of down on the NFC West. I expected this to be a really big year for the NFC West, where we thought basically every team there could compete. I mean, we probably discounted Seattle a little bit, but like even early on this season, they were scoring tons of points that like we kind of almost lumped them back in. But I think that at this point, like with the Rams had their bye week. They're 2-3, right? Or 3-3, whichever. They don't have a winning record for being Super Bowl champions. The Cardinals are playing some pretty disappointing half games, like, and losing a bunch of them, right? The 49ers, like, I want to believe that they're good, but even they keep losing some disappointing, confusing games. And for Seattle to be in it when we were so down on them at the beginning of the season, just because they were going to be the 4th place team in a really good division, like I'm kind of feeling down on the NFC West as well.
I mean, agreed. Again, the most explosion that I think we've seen is actually from the Seahawks, and which is not what we expected. I think all of them, again, they have the star potential to be make really exciting games. But all of those 3, Cardinals, Rams, and Niners, are just not performing at where I think we thought they were going to again. So it's not really like that entertaining because we haven't seen them, put up explosive points like the Seahawks.
Yeah, I don't want to discredit them entirely in that division because I know that there's the talent on at least a few of those teams to make a run in the playoffs if they get there, right? And somebody's obviously got to, but like it's just starting to feel further and further down every week when you keep seeing these disappointing score lines. The other one I'm kind of in the same boat is the AFC North. I know the Packers are down, or the Pittsburgh is down. We're gonna come back to them later because my boy Kenny Pickett got hurt. But like I knew the Steelers were going to be down, but I think we all expected Cleveland to be better. I think a lot of people, not necessarily the two of us so much, but a lot of people said that Cincinnati would be better. And even if you think the Ravens were a regular season team, I mean, we had to have expected more from them than what we're getting, right?
Yeah. I guess listen, when you make the Super Bowl, right? Like, again, this can be said for both the Rams and the Bengals. Like, I expect you guys to like come out, proving that you want it either again or to, kind of like a redemption tour. But like, we just haven't seen that kind of play from the Bengals. Again, they won against a very depleted Saints team still. And they only won by 4 points. So it's not what I expected from the Bengals. Again, the Ravens are losing games that they shouldn't. It's just, well, I don't know if they shouldn't lose to the Giants, though.
Yeah.
Oh, God. What is this happening? Again, they're not the team that I expected them to be. They're not blowing out teams. Again, losing Marquise Brown was pretty big, but I didn't think, and it might not just be him, but I think having that deep threat receiver really helped them. So it's interesting to see their offense kind of flat-footed still.
Yeah. You kind of brought me into my next point is I want to talk about some teams that maybe we misevaluated early this season. I know you've had your come to moment with the Giants. I know that I've done the same with Cooper Rush. We've both issued apologies for calling people out, right? But I think that there's a few other people on that list, or a few other teams on that list that we should probably revisit that might be better than we think they are, right? I'll start with the Jets because obviously we've already mentioned the fact that they're 4-2. We've kind of detracted from their schedule a little bit, but I mean, these were games that in past years, I think the Jets probably could have and would have lost anyway. Even like a mediocre Green Bay team, we probably still would have expected weeks 17 or 18 last year that Packers resting their starters would have still beaten the Jets. And I think we need to look at them a little differently than being 4-2. I mean, we've talked about the Dolphins on this podcast being like a real hopeful team for the AFC that can make some noise when they're healthy, but the Jets have a better record at the moment. Like I think we need to give a little back to New York.
I mean, yes, agreed. They might be performing, better than the Dolphins right now, but you still got some injuries on the Dolphins, so you can't really say overly too much about the Jets.
That's fair.
I do think that them winning and having this record is it's not what I expected. They're definitely doing a lot better, and yeah, maybe they could make some noise if they make a wild card spot or something.
Fair enough. The next one I've got, we did talk about the Vikings just really briefly earlier. I know that when we did our predictions for the season that we both kind of gave some credit to the Vikings that they could keep the division close. I didn't see them at 5-1. And again, not to toot a Philadelphia horn, but their only loss coming to the Eagles is like, I think that speaks really highly for them. I mean, if they had a different orientation to their schedule, they could very easily be 6-0 right now.
Yeah, agreed. Again, we had picked Packers and then Vikings, but like Vikings close. So again, even having them at the top of that division, I think we knew at one point it would probably be like that, but I didn't see them being, just having one loss through 6 weeks. So again, yeah, I think it's been a very impressive showing from them to start off and, come out with a 5-1 record. So I'll be interested to see that going forward. Again, it doesn't really seem like there's going to be much noise from the Packers as of right now. So I wouldn't be surprised if, the Vikings end up in the division winner for that.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think they've got a 2-game lead for the division, which is nothing small, especially the way that we've given credit to the Bears and the Lions. Aaron Rodgers is always going to be a threat. Like we watched flashes of him being really good yesterday, even though the Packers sucked. Like I don't want to just hand it to the Vikings now, but I mean, I think they've overperformed to this point. Like we've always, assumed that Kirk Cousins has always been the mediocre quarterback throwing to really good receivers, but like, that team is good on both sides of the ball. They're winning a lot of games, and if their only loss is a 6-0 record, I'd say it's going better for them than expected. In terms of mediocre quarterbacks, though, one guy we need to put some respect on his name is Geno Smith. We talked about the Seahawks a little bit, that they've just been able to throw up points left, right, and sideways. But I think the most remarkable part of that is that like Geno Smith has looked good, not winning a couple of games okay. Like, he looks good. I think I need to issue a special apology because I said that the most memorable highlight of his career is getting punched in the mouth by a teammate when he played for New York. But like, I'm very surprised to see Geno Smith and the Seahawks playing this well, putting up this much offense.
Agreed. Losing Russell Wilson and then filling them, it wasn't, I wouldn't have, if you had told me that he would have a better start to his season than Russell Wilson did with, Broncos, then I would tell you you're lying. But yeah, here we are. And again, Geno Smith, he's filled in before. He's done an exceptional job. But we haven't seen him as like the actual starting quarterback. So I guess this is like kind of his, he's just running his show now. So I guess it's interesting to see that, obviously. But yeah, that's
yeah. Just crazy to see what job security is doing for that man. I while I'm not rooting for the Seahawks, I'd love to watch him continue putting up points all season long. Continue proving me wrong, sir. Like, you've earned it. The other quarterback I want to talk about is Mitch Trubisky. Obviously, we know I'm a Kenny Pickett fan. We can all leave me alone about it, okay? I did not believe that game yesterday or 2 days ago was winnable for Pittsburgh, regardless of who their quarterback was. If it was Ben Roethlisberger in his prime with that roster, I don't think I would have expected them to beat Tampa Bay. Pickett looked pretty pedestrian, but he was obviously short before his injury. Trubisky came in and had a really, really, really good day. My fear is that Trubisky is going to be one of these guys like Mark Sanchez, who was never really that good but hangs along forever because he's won a few games that he isn't supposed to. But I'm wondering where you rank Trubisky in his ability to come into that game yesterday and win it, and maybe I'm misevaluating, or maybe the Bucks just had a real shit day. I think we need to give him more credit than we have, but I don't know how much credit that is.
Right. I think, yes, I think Mitch Trubisky could eventually maybe learn the proper tools to kind of be like another Geno Smith. I've never really seen him as like the starter type. So even when he first got drafted, I was kind of like, really, like, over other quarterbacks, such as Deshaun Watson, like, just, I don't know why. But again, he came in, he played a great game and led him back. So that was interesting. I do think that going forward, though, they're probably still going to continue to try to get Pickett his experience, kind of develop him a little bit more. So I feel a little bit bad in that capacity for Trubisky. But again, he hasn't, I don't know.
I'll always root for the dude to go secure the bag, right? Like, even if I want Pickett to have this job because I think Pittsburgh's a good place to stay long-term, even if not necessarily this season, like, I'm still going to root that while Trubisky's in, like, dude, play your heart out, secure the bag, go get a contract somewhere else, dude. Nick Foles is currently the third string quarterback that got traded as the third string quarterback from the Bears. Like, that dude's making $20 million to be a third string guy. I don't even know where he ended up. He won a Super Bowl MVP, and now he's making $20 million to ride the bench behind two guys. If that's what happens to Trubisky's career, dude, I'll bow at his feet. Like, by all means, secure the bag, right? But I also, like, I obviously saw him play well enough on Sunday that, like, I mean, he could get a job somewhere. And even if this job becomes Pickett's, like, I mean, I guess I just don't want to put disrespect on Trubisky if he has the ability to be better, and we've just only ever seen him on shit teams.
Well, I mean, if you go to that comparison, the quarterback, again, think about the top three quarterbacks of his draft. It was Patrick Mahomes, it was him, and then Deshaun Watson, two of which are like very mobile, very like ability, like they can just take over the game. But we haven't seen Trubisky be like that. So I guess, like, yes, he deserves some respect, but at the same time, like, we haven't really seen him be able to be that X factor. And again, so I think that at a certain point we need to, like, cut it off, because it's not like, again, we watched Deshaun Watson go onto the Texans, which wasn't like the best team, but it wasn't like the worst team. But like he made that team better. And same with Patty. Like it wasn't the best team, but it wasn't the worst team.
Listen,
And
Alex Smith would like a word. He was 14-2 before Patty Mahomes took over. All right.
yeah, but my point is like they still helped that, and then we never saw that same ability to help that team like lift them up on a different platform from Trubisky.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you to an extent. I just like. I guess I just don't want to disparage him more than is deserved, right? Like, I know that he's not Patrick Mahomes. I don't think anyone ever expected him to be. He doesn't have the skill set that Deshaun Watson does. I don't think anybody would have expected Trubisky to take over in Houston in a similar fashion, right? I guess, for me, like, the only teams I've seen him play on are a really subpar Bears team, and now, like, a kind of in shambles Pittsburgh team that lost a lot this offseason, right? So, like... I don't want to disparage him, and I'm not saying that he can't have success somewhere, but I also just I don't know how much credit to give him on top of what I was before Sunday. One other place we might need to assign some credit though is the Falcons. Right, I know that sounds ridiculous. Beginning of the season, every power ranking you could find on every website had the Falcons at the bottom of the barrel, expecting an 0-17 season, and one win was like a Super Bowl for them, and now they're 3-3. I think specifically between the two of us, we've given them a little credit about their ability to score, especially later on in games. But I think we talked previously that I never saw Mariota be that special in college. I never thought that Mariota was going to be any sort of game breaker. When we watch Ryan Tannehill do a better job with the same roster in Tennessee, it was just even further disparagement for Mariota. But he's running that offense super well. They're super efficient. They do have the ability to score in flurries. How much more respect do we need to put on the Falcons? How much noise do we think they have the potential to make?
I guess we need to put a little bit more respect. Obviously, we didn't anticipate that the Falcons would be playing this well. As for I feel like we're just living in a dream for right now. For the sure, like soon enough they'll just be like whittling down to like behind and everything. So again, I didn't expect this. So I'll be happy to enjoy if they have like another 3-3 stretch. But I have a feeling that at some point they're gonna kind of fall off the face of the earth and kind of go like a nice steep decline.
I want to agree with you. Like I don't want to believe that they're as good as their 3-3 record indicates. But I guess the thing that's holding me back from just buying all in on that is that like a couple of their wins have been pretty good. Beating the 49ers is no slouch, right? Like they've put together a couple of good wins for a resume, and I think that like now that we've seen a few weeks of this season play out, being 3-3 means that division is winnable. I hope to God this isn't another NFC West from like 10, 15 years ago where a 7-9 team makes the playoffs, right? Like nobody wants to see that. But grand scheme of things, if this division keeps going in that path, if the Falcons just continue playing 500 football, I mean, there's a shot. It's a non-zero chance. I know they got to be Brady to do it to win that division, but like as we watch Brady lose to the backup quarterback technically in Pittsburgh, like I don't know. I think that they could make. I think that they could make the playoffs. I don't expect them to win anything in the playoffs the way we've watched other teams play. Don't get me wrong, but like I don't think it's unreasonable to say that like expecting an 0-17 start, right, and then being in the playoffs come postseason time is necessarily something to scoff at.
Definitely not. If we see that, I mean, I'll eat my own words, but I fully expect them to kind of just fall off at some point. So,
well, I guess in another fashion, we've got some other overreactions to check out. I mean, we talked a little bit about the Eagles when we brought up that game that I don't think either one of us expected them to be 6-0 and be this hot. We talked about the Broncos that they were further down than we expected them to be. Russell Wilson wasn't playing to his best. I think the most notable one on this list that we haven't touched on at all is the Giants. I don't mean to, beat a dead horse into you that New York's playing good football, but I guess my big question from this week was the Giants-Ravens game. Did the Giants win? Did the Ravens lose? What are we feeling as an overall about New York?
I think this is the first time I'm going to say that they should have won. Like, yes, the Giants earned that win, and I think they won the more loss. I wasn't, I think going in, I was still kind of ragging on them, just holding out that maybe I was going to be right, but it doesn't look like the case right now. So again, the Giants definitely, they performed great. It was a fun game. Definitely not. Again, I still expected the Ravens to be a little bit better, just this season in general. So, but listen, I'm all here for surprises. So
yeah, I guess my big test for the I'm certainly up on the Giants. I am perfectly comfortable saying that they're a good football team, right? I don't know how deep a playoff run that gives them. I really don't. But I'm very interested for the litmus test that is the Eagles or the Cowboys. I mean, two teams that we've watched play really, really well. That the Giants are going to get twice of both of them this season. While the Giants have surprised me and they've been way better than expected, I also want to know how they compete against top teams. I don't mean to trounce the Ravens. I still think they're a good football team. I think the Giants have put together a pretty good resume, but I really want to see them play teams that are kind of emerging as conference favorites. I don't want to loop us back too hard, but I still kind of want to get back to the Packers and talk about how they've surprised us this season and genuinely what they need to do to turn this season around. I mean, offensive line is obviously a hard thing to fix mid-season, but beyond that, what else are you seeing from them? What else, what can they do to make this not a real shit year of football for them?
Oh God, I have no idea. I think that, obviously when it comes to drawing board of how to improve on this season, if you had asked me that going into this week, I could have had you a list of, things that I think would be great. But then you lose to the Jets and I kind of just throw away the drawing board, So I have no idea what can make.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to see them give Aaron Rodgers another weapon, right? To go and sign OBJ would be great, right? Just because he's got somebody to throw to, especially now with what's his name, Randall Cobb being out. Giving Aaron Rodgers another target sounds great, but I also know that isn't going to fix all of their problems, right? Their defense has played really well, and it's just that their offense isn't generating. I don't know if it's run game. I don't know if it's play calling. I really don't know what to do in Green Bay, but I think there's a lot of cause to being scared, especially to know that you're locked in again next season for another 1/3 of your salary cap being hit to Aaron Rodgers, and then still having nobody to throw to and no run game and nobody to pay, no money left to pay for offensive linemen. I think this is the first time maybe in my lifetime that I'm kind of seeing a downfall for Green Bay, where they're really hitting a downward slope.
Agreed.
All right. My next list of stuff here is more just some quick hits, just a couple quick thoughts and our really quick takes on them before we move into some other staples here. I want to talk about the Cardinals real quick. This week they lost Marquise Brown to injury, but they picked up a very disgruntled Robbie Anderson from Carolina, who got kicked out of the game early and was traded less than 24 hours later. What do you feel like this does for the Cardinals, being down a receiver, up a different receiver? Do you expect them to look any different next week?
Again, I expected just a lot more from the Cardinals, so I don't really know how much worse they can get in having the talent that they have. I think we're going to see a lot more of Kyler trying to do more, running wise, throwing wise. I think we won't see as many yardage. Again, having that deep threat is pretty, and him being their number one option right now is kind of sucks. So
yeah, I know it's either this week or next week that they get DeAndre Hopkins back, which I think is going to be helpful. Having Robbie Anderson as a 2 instead of Marquise Brown, I think is nice for the Cardinals, but I also don't know that throwing a new guy into that system right away is going to look like immediate success like it would normally look to pick up a guy like Robbie Anderson. Another note on the Cardinals, are we willing to call them bad? Are we willing to feel even further down on them, specifically with a loss to Seattle, rather than just any other loss?
I'm not gonna go there just yet. Again, not having DeAndre Hopkins is a pretty big loss. So if they lose like, 2 in a row, even with Hopkins back, then I would be willing to call them bad. But not right now, just knowing of how good of a receiver, Hopkins is. You can just throw it anywhere in his area and he'll get it. So that's the one thing that I would wait on before we start making extravagant calls and calling them bad.
I'm with you for the most part. The only thing that the only like extra tally mark I want to throw on top of what you said is that this will be the last week we have no brand new Call of Duty. I don't mean to give in to those rumors too hard, but like if we see that downward trend, not in week 7, but in week 8, I mean, I don't know what they can do there to make that any better, because like by that point, if you notice that the new Call of Duty means the Cardinals are bad, well, I think you're chalked up by week 9 every season. Like, so be it. On to another note, Dallas. So lots of talk online that Cooper Rush was the savior. Cooper Rush was super good. Look, we've got an MVP on our team. We've got 2 really good quarterbacks. Cooper Rush loses 1 game. Dak Prescott is the savior of all things holy. In week 1, when he was injured, they threw trash at him on his way off the field. What's your take on Dallas fans? How do you feel about it? What do you see coming there?
Dallas fans are out of pocket. Simple as that. But still, you can't just, agreed. Like, I wouldn't be so much as like calling him like, Cooper Rush trash and, shitting on him like that. I would just be like, oh yeah, he had a bad game, but like I wouldn't forget about, he won us 4 games in a row as well. So like, the 4 wins do more than the 1 loss, where he played, not such a good game. Again, yes, Dak is probably the better overall quarterback, but he hasn't been on the field for, 5 weeks. So you can't just like immediately rush to your other quarterback.
Yeah, I recognize the hyperbole, right? I mean, if you've ever turned on a sports radio station in Philadelphia, if they won their last game, they're the best team that's ever played. If they lost their last game, fire everyone. We don't want any of these players. Everyone's garbage, right? Like, I understand that that's how the hyperbole works, but I didn't see Cooper Rush playing that bad a game. I mean, I know 2 interceptions compared to none in the last 4 weeks is significant, right? But I would say that one of them wasn't necessarily egregious, right? Like, I don't think he had that bad a game. He put them back in the game in the 3rd quarter. I mean, I want to give Cooper Rush credit where it's due, especially because I talked so much shit for the last few weeks. But like I guess I don't know how to feel about Dak Prescott being a savior. Like, not being able to hold on to a football for the last 5 weeks is kind of terrifying. And I think after 1 loss, granted to a divisional opponent, you definitely don't want to lose to. But like, to put that much disparagement on Cooper Rush and to put that much faith into a dude you literally booed off the field with an injury 6 weeks ago, I don't know. It's just it's a really big leap for me, and I don't see a whole lot of self-awareness there from Cowboy fans. I think we talked about the Packers a little bit. We mentioned that one. Dolphins quarterbacks. All right, this has turned into a complete and total carousel. I'm genuinely having trouble following it. All right, so for the timeline of events, we had Tua go down, Bridgewater come in. Bridgewater was serviceable, not great. Following week, Tua gets injured again. Bridgewater then gets injured. They've brought in their 3rd string quarterback, looks kind of mediocre. This week, 3rd string quarterback gets injured. Bridgewater comes in and kind of balls out. He had a really good day. I know they still lost. Bridgewater looked really good under center. And now Tua comes back next week after not playing for 2 weeks with several concussions, and I don't know what to make about anything in that quarterback room in Miami. I'm just so confused as to who's playing, who's their backup, who can remain healthy enough to get anything done when all 3 of them have gotten injured in a course of 4 weeks.
Yeah, I have no idea. I think that Tua's the better quarterback from those 3, but I think that obviously the Dolphins will go back to Tua just in general. Obviously, that they've committed enough. But again, like I wouldn't. At the same time, we talk about coming back from injury. If they should rush it again, I wouldn't rush Tua back right now. Like I would have, keep that carousel going for one more week and, just get to another week and have him back even better and stronger and healthier than would have him here and risk another injury.
I guess the issue is just comfort for me, though, right? Like, if Tua is cleared to play, but you want to keep Bridgewater in, right? Well, now Bridgewater's getting the first team snaps in practices while Tua's healthy. If your intent is to bring Tua back, how much do you split that time? How much worse off is Bridgewater if he's not getting all of the first team reps and he's like kind of splitting time? Like, I think it's really interesting to not necessarily have health in 3 different quarterbacks that you can rely on. And even if you know that your future plan is to go back to Tua, right? Like, do you wait for a bye week to kind of stabilize things and get enough reps in there? Like, do they sign another quarterback so that Bridgewater can play this week with the first team and then they've got just, a jersey ready on the bench? I feel like if you're going to play Tua this week, you give him all of the first team snaps, but after 2 concussions in back-to-back weeks, not playing for 2 weeks, like, I don't know how thoroughly good he's going to look this week with the better part of 4 weeks not playing a complete week. I don't know. I would be kind of scared in Miami as far as like what that quarterback room looks like when you've got a whole lot of injury problems happening to a whole lot of guys.
Yeah.
The last one I have on my quick hits note is the Chargers record. I told you we were going to come back to talking records and, doing this again. They're a very, very weak 4-2, in my opinion. To recap their season, it was a win against the Raiders, a loss to Kansas City, a loss to Jacksonville, but then wins over Houston, Cleveland, Denver. Cleveland doesn't look as good as we thought they were going to. I guess we've given Vegas a little bit of credit in the previous weeks, that they've looked better than their record suggests. I understand losing to Kansas City. I'm not here to hold that one against them. Jacksonville's kind of come back to par, so I think that loss looks a little worse than it did when they lost. Wins over Denver in overtime and wins over Houston just don't necessarily feel that good. How stable are we feeling this 4-2 record to be?
Again, I think that, talking that same division, like I think that, obviously the Chiefs are the better team there, but I think, again, the Raiders are probably better than the Chargers, even though the record doesn't reflect it. Yes, some of these wins, they're decent. They're, one win, it's just like, decent, but then, losing or winning against both Houston and the Broncos and needing overtime, I think it actually hurts them. Even though they won the game, I think it actually hurts them because they didn't win it handedly like we all expected them to.
Yeah, and I guess we're just not seeing that special factor that we kind of saw from them last year. I mean, I know they missed the playoffs, but they felt electric on offense. Herbert felt like he was super special, and I know we've talked about his injury issues with his ribs a little bit. Their play calling last season felt phenomenal and over the top, and this year I guess I'm just like, I know they're 4-2, but I don't feel any confidence that they can make any runs, beat any good teams. Like, I feel like they're just opportunists and getting good circumstances to take wins rather than to actually win the games. All right. I guess we'll move on from the recap of the week and start moving into some other stuff. My big note for fantasy, I know we talked a little bit about bye weeks last week. This might be the most impactful bye week I have ever seen in my time playing fantasy football, though. Your teams on a bye this week are the Bills, the Rams, the Vikings, the Eagles. So you're missing out on top running backs. You're missing out on top receivers. Even a couple quarterbacks that you can rely on, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Bills and the Eagles have the 2 best fantasy quarterbacks by scoring this season. So what kinds of things are we looking to do to replace it if you've got several pieces from these higher echelon teams all being out at the same time?
Again, agree. Like, it's kind of a risky thing. So, in our fantasy, I've there's a team that has like 8 people all on buys, like even including into the. So it's kind of just like, what do you do in that situation? Like, you have to obviously drop some of them in order to pick up other people. So like, I would almost drop the people that, obviously not the stars, right? So like, you wouldn't drop Cooper Kupp, you wouldn't drop Alvin Kamara, like you wouldn't drop these other big names even if they have their bye week, like you'd probably want to drop someone you don't really know or hear as much, like a decent receiver, and kind of just pick someone up for in the moment and just kind of hope that you can sweep them back up after that week. But again, that's why usually in drafts, I always try to make sure. I know we had talked about that where you look at the bye weeks. I usually don't really. I look at it, once all the teams have been set, and kind of plan ahead for that. And, but again, it's kind of just like kind of hope that, the people you drop don't get picked up. It's kind of just a mad scramble.
Right. I guess it's just like, it's really weird to see all the good teams this way being on buys at the same time. You talked last week about like during your draft diversifying and picking up from different teams, but like in a situation where you've got Cooper Kupp from the Rams, Josh Allen as your quarterback, Justin Jefferson from the Vikings, and either one of the Eagles' big receivers in AJ Brown or Devontae Smith, like you could realistically have diversified during your draft. Those are 4 really good names to get, and they're all out this week. Like you're losing a lot of production, but I don't know what's available in people's waiver wires in their leagues, how big their teams are, or, what caliber of players are in those leagues. But that's a lot of replacement that you'd need to go get. That's a lot of value you'd need to find somewhere else. And to drop one of those guys to go get them just because they're on a bye week means you're losing production for the future too. I mean, like, do you take any value in just accepting your loss this week, not changing your roster, knowing that, well, now you have these guys for the rest of the season, or you here to win every week?
I mean, again, I wouldn't be dropping all my starters, but like if I was comfortable enough with dropping, a number 2 receiver or maybe a number 3 receiver, like that, I might drop them in order to just get those points. But again, sometimes the value, like the quantity of people doesn't line up with the points. So you kind of have to find like a balance. Like if it's not worth it, and you're fine losing 11 points from, your flex receiver running back, like then, that's okay. You just put everything else right. But again, I guess it kind of depends on trying to find that balance of, yes, I can, drop them for a week and then pick up someone who has similar production, or just I'm okay losing the 8 points or 11.
Makes sense. Who else did you see stand out in fantasy this week? What kinds of things are you looking at or looking back towards?
I honestly, this week, I kind of forgot about it. I've been busy with work, so I didn't really notice too much. I know, again, I was more focused on this coming week, seeing all of those buys, and kind of just trying to prepare and plan ahead. But again, seeing those like 8 people out on buys was definitely something to watch for me. I'll be waiting. Yeah. If the person drops some players, I might be scooping them up. So,
got to keep your eyes open, man. I think the last thing we've got to get to is gambling. Listen, spreads didn't do us a whole lot of favors. Weird games didn't do us a whole lot of favors. Noah went 4-10 this week. I went 8-6. I still don't feel good about my 8-6. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I still feel like I did shit. That brings Noah to a total of 35, 58-1 for the season. I'm at 40, 53-1. Still both of us on losing records, and I hate it here. All right, on to this week's games. I guess we'll start with Thursday night. Saints and the Cardinals. Cardinals are 1.5 favorites at home.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Man, I've seen the Saints put up pretty good games. I've seen the Saints absolutely flub it, and I don't know which Saints we're going to get. My faith is going to go to the Cardinals this week just because it's the last week we have without Call of Duty, and I'm 99% sure this is the week that DeAndre Hopkins comes back. So I'm going to give the edge to the Cardinals.
I think I probably would have gone with the Saints, but I think it being at home for Arizona, they'll probably find a way to squeak out a win. So I'm going Arizona.
Yeah, the 1.5 spread there is nice as well. I mean, you don't have to commit too hard. They can win by a field goal and you still get the dub. Next one I've got is Lions Cowboys. Cowboys are -7 at home. I don't know about you. I'm struggling with this one a lot. I still think that there's a whole lot of value in considering injuries. Dak Prescott holding a football for the first time in 5 weeks is kind of a scary thing. I know the offense is good. I know Dak's good. The defense is good. Like, I know that the Cowboys are probably a better team, but Dak with that injury scares me a bit. We did see the Lions really shit the bed in their last game 2 weeks ago against the Patriots, but I also know that their offense can score, and they've had an extra week of rest on top of it. 7 points makes this really, really hard. I think I'm still taking the Cowboys, but I am very prepared to lose this one.
I'm going to go opposite with you. I think this is going to be a Detroit win. Again, we talked about the Chargers being a weak 4-2 team. And, I think that, again, Detroit hasn't had, the bounces and everything, but they're better than a 1-4 record. So I'm going Lions.
All right. I'll give it to you. But like I said, I don't feel good about that one. It could really go either way. Colts and Titans. Titans are 2.5 favorites at home.
I'd probably agree with that. I haven't seen a lot from the Titans. I haven't seen a lot from Colts. Again, we saw the Titans win 2 in a row, but it's still not the same Derrick Henry.
Yeah, the Titans play calling has been weird. I kind of hope that the week off benefits them, that they get the extra chance to cook something up in the lab and get something done. But the Colts played pretty well last week. I did talk shit on this division that I don't care to watch it. Not in the slightest. There's nothing that you can do that will make me turn this game on. But I guess I just have to ride the Colts winning last week, and rolling that over against the division again. Next, I've got the Giants and the Jaguars. Jags are -3 at home. I am tired of the odds makers shitting on the Giants. They're the favorites. I don't care what the scoreline says. Giants win this game on the road. It's done.
Gosh. I don't like saying it, but yeah, agreed. Giants in this game pretty handedly, I'm going to feel like. Yeah.
I don't know when these odds makers are going to look at a 5-1 team and start making them the favorites against a 3-3 Jags team, but we'll move on. Next one I've got is the Browns and the Ravens. Ravens are 6.5 favorites. I don't know about you. I'm getting even more down on the Browns by the week. Ravens, I know they lost, but they looked like they played better football than the Browns did. I'm taking the Ravens. I can feel okay at 6.5.
Agreed. I think I wouldn't if we saw the Cleveland team that we thought we were going to see this season, but we haven't seen that. So again, yeah, I'm down on the Browns. Ravens win.
All right. Next one I've got is the Falcons and the Bengals. Bengals are 6.5 favorites at home. This one kind of confuses me because the Falcons beat the 49ers. The Bengals didn't look super great. 6.5 spread is bizarre to me. I'm taking Atlanta, and the longer I think about it, the worse I'm going to feel. So picking the Falcons and moving on.
I'm going Bengals because I stand by my statement. I think the Falcons are just going to fade away soon, and I'm hoping it starts this week.
All right. I've got the Packers at the Commanders. Packers 5.5 favorites on the road. This one stresses me out a lot because I still want to talk shit on the New York Jets. I know they're 4-2. I know I tried my hardest this podcast to hype them up and say that we should give them more respect, but they're still the fucking New York Jets. The Packers just lost to them. I know Washington is bad. I know Washington is worse than the Jets, but the Packers shit the bed. I guess I'm going with Green Bay because I really, really, really don't believe in Carson Wentz, but it's so hard not to take Washington here at value.
I'm going to go the same. I do think that, I do think that, the Packers are a better team, I think.
Yeah, but it's hard to see that. Like you're right, but it's hard to see it.
But again, so I think I'm going to go Packers, even against the lowly Commanders, but it might be close as well. So
it just doesn't feel good. I have the Bucks and the Panthers. Bucks are -10.5. We've talked the past couple of weeks with these big ass spreads that it's hard to cover at 10 points, and the Bucks just lost to the fucking Steelers. It's hard for me to not take the Panthers here. That just at 10.5, down week for the Bucks, I'm taking the Panthers.
I'm gonna go the same. I think Tampa Bay wins, but 10.5 is just too big. So I'm gonna go with the Panthers as well.
Yeah. All right. I've got Texans, Raiders. Raiders are -7 at home. This one's a no-brainer for me. Down on Houston. Raiders have looked good their past couple of games, and then a bye week last week. Raiders is pretty easy for me.
Agreed.
Easy. Moving on. Jets, Broncos. God damn it. Broncos are 2.5 favorites at home. I'll trade this one in for another green jersey. Jets, 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 Jets. I see the disappointment. I'm watching you struggle.
Again, I'm gonna have to go with the hotter team right now, and that's clearly the Jets. I'm not saying that they're better than the Broncos. I'm just saying the hotter team.
All right, I'm saying the Jets are better than the Broncos this season, but we'll leave that one right alone. I have Seahawks, Chargers. Chargers are 6.5 favorites at home. I'm going to fade this one. I'm taking the Seahawks. The Seahawks have showed me a better ability to score. Like we mentioned earlier, the Chiefs are a pretty weak, or the Chargers, are a pretty weak 4-2. I expect the Seahawks to actually put their names on a map this week and beat the Chargers on the road.
I'm gonna actually go with the Chargers. I think that we've seen Seattle have on games, have off games, have on games, have off games, have on games. So I'm interested to see. Obviously, if they have 2 straight, on games, then they'll probably win it. But I'm almost thinking that they're gonna have an off week, and I think we'll see something from the Chargers.
Okay. I'm kind of hoping so. I want the Chargers to be as electric as I know they can be, but this one feels pretty easy. I'm taking the Seahawks. But next, I've got the Chiefs and the 49ers. Chiefs are 3-point favorites on the road. For me, this one's game of the week. The 49ers have showed flashes of being really good. 49ers have showed that they can definitely lose to some not so great teams. I think I'm taking the Chiefs, but I hope this turns into a good football game.
Agreed. It'll be a rematch from the Super Bowl a few years ago. But again, I got to go Chiefs here. I think, losing this past week was a little bit more of a harsher kind of loss. So I'm down on the Niners right now, even though, 2 weeks ago, I was like, oh, they're back. So, Chiefs this game.
All right. I'm very excited to not have to watch Sunday Night Football this week because we got the Steelers and the Dolphins. Dolphins are 7-point favorites at home. With Tua coming back, Steelers having questions, I guess, is the best way I can put it at quarterback. I still think Tua has the ability to be a very good quarterback. I think they're the better team offensively, defensively, the whole way around. I think I can feel okay about the Dolphins with 7.
Agreed, yeah.
All right, and then last game of the week is the Monday night. Another one I'm very thankful I don't have to watch. Bears and Patriots. Patriots are 7.5 favorites at home. For me, this one, I know we've talked about the Bears a bunch, and we've been higher on them than their record would indicate. But the Patriots have just been playing pretty good football the past couple of weeks. I don't know about 7.5, but I'm still going to take them anyway. Playing at home in a primetime game, it's hard not to trust Belichick. I'm going to go with the Patriots, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears do cover that spread.
I actually thought you were going to go Bears, and I was going to be different from you. But yeah, I agree. I think it's in New England. They played 2 really good weeks and these past 2 weeks, so I'm going to say, the Patriots, as much as it hurts me to say, but yeah.
Yeah, can't root for the Patriots. I don't care who you are, unless you're a Pats fan, and even then, I don't really care about your opinion. Anyway, as always, lines are provided by FanDuel as of Tuesday afternoon, are subject to change by game time. Please gamble responsibly, and remember that we're not providing gambling advice, solely providing our picks. If you or a loved one is dealing with a gambling issue, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. All those fun things you're supposed to say when you're talking about gambling, because clearly we don't know what we're doing. All right. I think that wraps us up for this week. Sorry that it's posting late. Life happens, next week we'll try to be back on schedule. A couple weeks from now, we may have some scheduling issues. It might be Wednesday instead of Tuesday, but we'll keep you guys posted on Twitter. As always, drop a comment, leave a follow both of our Twitch accounts, hop in both the Discords, do all of that fun stuff. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next week.